panoramic
We're almost-
of these properties on the next individual kind of closer.
Okay, good evening. The Design Review Board Number 2 public meeting of December 10th, 2009 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the speaker cards or one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Baladian?
Yes.
Board Member Garagos is absent. Board Member Sakai?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian is also absent, and Chairperson Malikian?
Here.
Is now the report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on December 3rd, 2009. Oral communications. I do not have any oral communication cards. Chairperson Malikian, do you have any?
We don't have.
We do not have any, which brings us to the review calendar. At this point in time, there are no staff announcements, and there are no items on the consent calendar. So, which leads us directly to the Design Review Board agenda and our one and only case. Will Mr. Baxter be presenting
And
it?
the last case of the
The one, only, and last case, correct.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the board. Our case this evening is PDR 2009-037A. It's the first time review by an applicant for final review at 2030 Chilton Drive, which is up in the northwest portion of Glendale in a neighborhood called, it's generally identified as an El Miradero neighborhood in the city of Glendale. The applicant is proposing a 93 square foot addition to the first floor and a 555 square foot new second floor. The total house size will be 2181 when the house is completed. It's currently about 1,500 square feet. Now, real quickly, what we have is the applicant has given us an existing plan and proposed ones. And I have site, floor, and elevations, and I've highlighted the proposed ones so that you can kind of see where the proposed is. But this would be the equivalent of the existing, so you can kind of look at that. And then here is our proposed down the middle with a perspective from the rear and a perspective from the street. Okay. When we look at some of the topography in this area, which is an R1 zone, so this is a single-family neighborhood, the only real interesting environmental issue that I want to mention is you can kind of see it if you drove by the lot, is that when you look from the street down, there's a slight slope. It's approximately 7 feet from the very back, from the front to the very back. Here on the both in the overheads, we have, you can kind of get another view. The front of the house being up here, in the back here, we have the garage, we have a driveway, and this would be the existing house right there. There's the pool, and give you kind of a feel. I actually have another aerial perspective. If you want to look, I can pull that up. This one is our kind of in-house city aerial, and we have one that's from Google Maps that I could pull up. It's all, it's right down here, ready to go if you want to look at that. And you also see the model that the applicant presented. As far as the neighborhood survey, the house, the lot, the setback, floor area ratio, pretty similar. I think if there's only one thing, it's a little different, is that the majority of homes are one-story. However, 2 stories are appropriate in this neighborhood. But that would be the only issue of that characteristics that's a little different. Now, when we go into our staff report and I look at our 3 major areas, our site planning, mass and scale, and building design, I'll start with the site planning. Generally, the site planning appears consistent with the majority of homes in the neighborhood as far as our analysis above goes. There are some zoning issues, pretty minor sorts of things that we'll work out with the applicant. Other than that, we felt the site planning itself, there was no problem with that. Mass and scale, the proposal's 2-story addition is really not visible from the street, and this is probably not too, it's probably fairly consistent. I mean, whether you look at it from a perspective, from a elevation view or the perspective view, there's not going to be much of a view of the 2nd story from the street. I think if you looked at the story poles, if you had an opportunity to drive by, you'll notice that as well. Now, where staff felt there was some issues was from the side, which would be our east and our south elevation back here, and we just felt that maybe some type of articulation here. So we've had some conditions and considerations to articulate those 2 wall faces. Provide some roof pitches that may be more consistent with the simpler design that we have here. This would be our original house kind of design here, as you can see from here. In fact, you can see here and here. And then finally, we were wondering about maybe reconfiguring this this trellis element here too in the back, and so that we noted that in our staff report. On our building design, our architectural issues, the staff felt that the proposed architectural style, the textures and materials reinforce an eclectic design. Kind of moves away from the original simpler design that you can see kind of from our existing over here. And we have some conditions. It's actually, we kind of a little back and forth on it, but we have to consider proceeding along with this eclectic design, or to ask the applicant to return for redesign and modify it so it's more of a simpler design. Now, I've had conversations with the applicant. This project came in quite a while ago, and this spring, as a matter of fact. And we wrote a letter right off the bat and said, we found some anomalies here. There's some issues that really don't seem to work. And the applicant said, well, I'm not aware of that, of the architect. I said, I'm not really aware of it. I was hired to do, the additions only, the physical additions. And so some of the things that we found, and we wrote a letter to the applicant asking them to respond to see if they could help us understand what happened, whether they... So, and they never did. So,
what are they?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. So, for instance, this little hat type area you can see here, for instance, that wasn't part of an approval. The little trellis, as it shows here, well, any trellis wasn't part of it. The windows, which are aluminum windows, with, for instance, in the front with the foam mold trims around, we couldn't find anything to indicate that that was approved. The little things that followed, minor, probably didn't even need permits, but kind of the ornate railings that they had in the back here, the bowed type ornate railings and things. So little things like that. I made a list afterwards. Said later on in the fall, I said, we're just going to proceed because we haven't found anything. We haven't heard from you guys. So the applicant said, the architect said, listen, I will do what I can to help you out. He says, but my focus was something totally different, and so this is kind of segueing. And that's why staff has said, okay, well, the simpler design was this. If the board wants the applicant to go back to a simpler design, fine. If not, then we'll proceed with the eclectic one.
Question.
Yes.
The existing foam moldings.
Yes.
We only found them in the front facade.
Yes, sir. That's the only ones that I'm aware of, yes.
existing?
As shown
Only
right
on the
there.
front facade, there's two locations.
That is correct, sir.
Nothing in the back, nothing in the...
No, sir, I'm not aware
And
of it.
he's not proposing.
No, sir, no.
Is he planning to remove those?
I would assume not, but I'd leave it to them. The reason I say that is because this is the proposal. This is showing what's existing and what will remain. So that's what he's showing. So I assume they're going to stay, but he could go into that. My understanding is they weren't touching. His intent was not to touch anything up here. His whole intent was from here on back, this and this right here.
And you believe there's no permit was pulled for the front?
I could not find anything. I can show you something here real quick. The last permit set that I found was, now this is building code, so there's copyright issues, but this was the last one that I found, and so if I could, ma'am. It's very small, it's just photocopy here, but you can see, there's the front of the house. Oh, and Haran's also got a large cut. Okay.
That's the same set that you're showing.
Okay, good.
Perhaps this is...
But anyway, it's got the stamps, this one has the stamps too, so.
So they have a permit to do this.
Yeah, that's,
Assuming-
well, yeah, this is the fill-in, that was the
Fill-in,
fill-in, 120 some odd square feet, and a patio cover back there.
Have it covered. And when you look at the elevation, it has no...
No moldings, no
See,
trellis.
see, for instance, right here, this is where the little, kind of the
Right.
hat there, and the trellis comes beyond that, there. So that was, and it's like I said, it's a simpler design. There's a couple of homes next to it. If you look on these elevations here, members of the board, here's your existing house. This is kind of what the house probably looked like at one time. Kind of had this simpler look right here.
They're tract homes.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all similar.
So they probably looked a little bit like that.
There's no Spanish on the street.
Well, there's little things like this, I imagine, but it's, little things like that. So we're not really, the staff is sort of saying, if you want to go with what we have, then, we can work with it. If not, and you want to try to bring it back to something simpler, that's fine. So we're kind of leaving it as an option in our recommendations.
Okay. Well,
If I could mention one other thing too, just to finish up, because you can see and read what our conditions were. The one issue on privacy, we didn't feel that was being a problem. We have an overhead, here we go, I'm sorry. So the applicant was able to make a presentation on the overhead showing that this little tiny bathroom window is all they're adding. So they're not looking into their neighbor. You just have that volume, and so this is pretty well secured, so there really isn't any privacy issue as far as staff go with this particular thing.
The addition versus the existing, there's no articulation.
On this facade right here, sir.
There's
And
no
on this one.
articulation.
Correct.
And on the other side too.
That is correct, sir.
So it just goes straight up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The model should probably...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just...
Now, if I could mention one other thing, in our staff report, we did make a note. The applicant did his best to comply because we met with him. Staff felt breaking the roof. The applicant, he has a model to show that he preferred to have it kind of joined together and sort of create, like he'll show. I'm probably not explaining connecting this, but staff felt that should break and that just should be a separate element. So, all right. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. You stick around, and I'm sure
Yes,
we'll
sir.
have questions. I mean, you can just, I'm going to call the architect, and if you have any questions. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Haran Sarkisian?
I tried to look through it.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Chairman Malakian. My name is Haran Sarkisian. I'm practicing architect in Glendale. And we're the designer of the building. And today, I'm facing two challenges. Some are created by me, and some of the comments are not created by me, but I have inherited it, and I'm going to try to do my best to see what we can do with it for that. Essentially, the charge was, it's a extended family that lives in this house. I know the charge of design review board, but I have to indulge in if I may, 1 minute of a background on this family, because it is a key. Otherwise, I don't think either the owner or the occupant, who happens to be the brother, would have started or was willing to spend the money that we're going to spend on this house at this point. But they are an extended family. The mother lives in that house. The sister lives across the street, and the other sister lives 6 doors down. And it's by virtue of being on the street that they're able to maintain and help her, because she needs help in both language and mobility and so forth. So he's committed. He has a business in Glendale. I just did a building for him on the corner of Raymond and Glenworks Boulevard, across the street from your building. And the sister is opening a gallery in that building. So they have businesses in Glendale. The kids go in there, and they have 2 children, presently boys, who are beginning, I think they're getting into their teens, and they live in one of those bedrooms. This is a 1929 house with bedrooms that they were just totally inadequate for today's lifestyle. It's just a tiny little house. It has been added on, and a bunch of modification has been done by previous owners. Some of them were there when he bought the house. But at this point, I have inherited it, and I would have to deal with those with this board. So I appreciate your consideration of that. In designing this particular addition, the task was just to create a master bedroom, just a bigger bedroom, so the downstairs bedroom can be given to one of the sons, so they could move on. It's a needed bathroom and a bedroom. That's all the scope of the addition. The owner, frankly, wanted a piece across the whole width of the back. And we worked various schemes, and I talked him out of it. And I talked him to put it on that corner, because I think the 2 critical views of the house are the street view and the driveway side view. Those are the only 2 sides where you can get some sort of a notion of this volume. Otherwise, this house has a tree in front of it. In my effort to even produce a front elevation of the street, you can't even see the house because there's a tree in front of it. It's in the photograph package. So I placed it there, and the walls are sitting on the present bedroom walls in there. The width of that bedroom upstairs is 12.5 feet. It is, to say the least, a very modest bedroom addition and a modest bathroom addition. 90 square foot of this addition is a stair. However, the plan had been modified previously, and the hallway that used to be the original hallway of the house was closed for expanding one of the bedrooms for the 2 boys. And the traffic of the house was quite bad, if I may say so. In order to access the bedrooms, you had to go through the kitchen presently to access the bedrooms. So, and the room that was behind the kitchen was a pantry, and it was used as an extension of the kitchen. So I talked him finally into allowing me to resurrect this house, the floor plan, and create really a hallway that is proper for the house, that joins the stair, and put the house what I would call in the discipline that it needs to be, that there's a proper hallway reaching the bedrooms, and it also leads to the upstairs floor plan. As we filed, I think Chris did a remarkable job of researching it and came up with all these past additions, modifications, whatever, that there is no history of a permit on. And I have to concede that. That's a fact. We don't know it was yes, it's no. The fact is we don't have any record of it. As I looked at the street, this is probably a track house built 1929. It's a simple track house with some features. To me, probably one of the dominant features of the house was this asymmetrical roof that it has on the side. So in creating the elevation at the rear, my idea was that I would do that, and I extended that to create that asymmetrical roof line, as well as putting something in front of that second small mass to soften the mass, and also in front of the flat roof that has been built over their present patio to
No, don't worry about it.
soften.
We don't
Yeah,
have it,
I think I'm the only show for today. To soften the flat roof that is there. So the trellis effect, essentially, it softens the flat roof that they added to the sloping roof sometimes back. And also it creates a profile that is somewhat reminiscent of this asymmetrical roof profile that they have on the site. I have really no way to offset the walls. I mean, the room is 12 and a half feet, and it is nothing in terms of a bedroom. And so in looking and trying to see what I could do to address these issues that there are pre-me on this house, I prepared, by the way, just looking at the street, there are, and the issues are, for example, the father of the occupant planted some vines and I think built a metal trellis that extends to the property line, which is against the zoning ordinance. And we've offered to take it out, and I'll give you a list of that in a moment. However, the next door neighbor, exactly next door, in a photograph, has a porte cochere that it's a solid roof, and it goes exactly to the same property. Sitting right next door. That's a 3-story house, by the way, next door. Not 2-story, but 3-story house. I looked at the street. Houses at 2009, 2015, 2026, 2040, 2054, 2051, all have aluminum divided lights on the street. It's a street that has a few very handsome old houses that remain in the original style. But frankly, this is not one of them, and there are a number of houses that they have violated what one may call the simple Tudor-like effect. And I don't think this house really was done in a Tudor style. I think it was done the simplistic way as it could be in 1929. There are also houses on 2034 and another one that has exactly the same porte cochere that this trellis effect apparently represents. Anyway, still trying to solve what we are facing, essentially, in terms of these changes. I made a list, and I'd like to hand this out, a list of items. Anybody else?
I'll probably step in.
Maybe Stephanie would like that. Okay. By the way, I did my original scheme, which is this one. And I had a meeting with the staff,
You need to speak in the mic.
with Stephanie and Chris. And I think the suggestion that we arrived mutually was that perhaps it was better to leave the ridge alone and move the mass further south and not extend that. Originally, I was going to extend the roof on the same slope slightly and then blend the two roofs together. So the second model that you see next to you essentially reflects what we discussed, and we mutually agreed that perhaps was better. I think for all intents and purposes, you'll never see this addition from the street, ever. Material, it's all matching. And the windows that I'm adding, I'm matching. Now, in terms of what I have on this list that relates to these items that there are quote-unquote unpermitted or non-permitted additions, is we agreed that we would be happy to, we would do that, extend that small roof all the way back, which is a suggestion embedded in the staff report. Frankly, I think that would amplify that particular element. That's my opinion, because I was trying to show it to you as design review boards, and in the photograph it's not even discernible. You can't even see the end of that small roof. However, if the feeling is that that's a better solution, we'll be happy to do that. We are going to remove the arbor, although presently it carries a grapevine that the father of the owner had planted, and it had some value for him, but we agreed that we would take that out. So we can eradicate that zoning ordinance violation. We are willing to also take the patio cover, which is like an extension of the garage roof of some fashion, over an outside little sitting area that he has out there. Even though, and if I may borrow this drawing from you, this drawing is what gets some of us who do their work properly in. This is a miserable set of work and a miserable permit, and I have inherited now the problems created by such people. In this drawing, and I'll bring it forward so you can see, there is a dotted line that shows that patio cover. However, failure in knowing what to draw, there are no elevations. Everywhere that is carried is inconsistent. So, and by the way, that patio cover is visible only from the rear, and nobody sees it except the owner uses it. Same thing with the rail issue. Apparently, they've changed it. I don't know when it was changed, and none of us know that. However, it is only and only visible to the owner of this residence. It's not visible from the street or anything else. Finally, in terms of articulating that two-story element, which is my creation, I thought perhaps something that I can offer is to remove the second-story balcony, to reduce what I would say, the projection off of it, and just put a rail right, parallel with the slider door, maybe 4 or 5 inches away from it, to reduce the projection of that elevation to help. So the attached drawings that I have prepared illustrate the proposals that they're there, so you can choose and pick,
Mr.
and
Sarkisian,
hopefully get somehow this shown.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And I appreciate you going beyond the call of duty of presenting this stuff to us, which I appreciate that. And I appreciate you understanding what the issues are, and I know for sure that you understand where we sit and what we're going to be looking at as far as when we're looking at the design of the project. But my couple of questions for you. What is the, and I'm trying to understand this, but what is going to be the plate height of the second floor addition?
7.5.
Is it 7.5, 7.3, or 8?
I've lowered it as much as it is tolerable.
Okay. And the other question that I have is, on your west elevation, when you're looking at the slope of the finished grade, you're showing the finished grade coming and abruptly being cut right at the edge of the balcony. That's the retaining wall that you're specifying that you want to plaster, correct? Or is it?
May I approach there?
Yes.
I'm talking about that little wall way on top elevation.
I'm talking about
No, that's the west elevation.
this. I'm talking about this.
That's the
Is
west
this-
elevation. Are you talking about this wall?
No, that's an east elevation. This is the west elevation. This is based on the west elevation.
Actually-
That's west elevation.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, that's correct, that's west.
That's west elevation. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. So okay.
We
Okay. Sorry.
mislabeled it. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
East elevation.
As it's indicated that east elevation.
Yes.
So the actual grade comes.
Yes.
And then it drops.
Drops,
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. I'm trying
Would you like to see a
understand-
view of that? I have a photograph.
No,
that
I
maybe-
saw it, and,
Yeah.
and I didn't see the.
Yeah, there's a drop there.
Actually, because I didn't walk on the side, and I didn't see that.
There's a
I
little
thought
wrought
that was-
iron gate that is locked, and there's a drop. There's
Okay.
a masonry wall drop
Okay.
there.
That was my question, trying to understand.
This is the only addition that I'm doing.
No, I understand. I understand.
This is the only window that I'm proposing to put on that.
But you have to modify that roof because you're cutting into the existing roof too, the space. I mean, you're not just
Right.
plugging in.
Right.
I know we understand that you're doing that addition, but you are going to disturb the existing
No, what is
portion
going
of
to
the
happen
structure.
is, based on the floor plan.
The wall is
Valadian
on top
correct.
of the wall, but the roof is going to go.
The roof is going to
Yeah,
go,
even
and then
the
also
ceiling
that
joists are
wall
gonna
won't,
No, the-
even that wall won't be able to.
May I draw on this? I mean, it's,
You know something, I can get you a pencil and we can,
yeah, if you can.
Well, in this section you could see it, Alan.
Right.
Right, this one.
So literally,
See his stick?
yeah, exactly.
See right
So-
here.
So this is your finish, so it's actually going to be there. So the actual, the reminiscence of this outline, it's going to be gone.
So he's going to demo this.
Yeah. Right.
My question, Mr. Derhart, after you're demoing
And
this
I'm
line,
recreating it.
you're creating it
Oh,
back
yeah.
in there.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm recreating
has
because
this
I
one.
think
He took it away.
it reflects what it was there. I mean, the trims on the house are like 2.5 inches, the overhangs are 2 inches. So instead of having this flat wall, I think that would help the house.
Well, let's start talking about it. Maybe we can get somewhere with this. Thank you very much. I'm gonna, if you don't have any more questions for the architect.
one thing I did want to mention that,
That's that between those two houses. By the way, the next door house is some 5 feet forward and is only 3 feet away from the property line, while this one is 5 feet away. So the canyon between the two
You need
houses
to
is
speak. They can't hear
some
you.
8 feet
Okay.
between the two houses.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair and members of the board, you should have a letter I forgot
Yes,
to
we
mention.
did. If you, I'm sure everybody received it. Had a
Yeah, from
chance, and-
Ms. Fisher and a Ms.
Fisher.
French.
Ms. French, yes.
And it's a letter to the board members for your review. And I gave one to each of the board members, so it's...
Yes.
Okay.
If I may say, but besides meeting with the staff, I arranged for a neighborhood presentation. Called the president of the Northwest Homeowner Association personally. I left him a message. I sent him an email. And we gave notices to all the neighbors across. Only one gentleman that lives in the next door house showed up. Nobody else showed up.
Appreciate it.
And today, I think we're facing the same. There's nobody except us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public session. I think we're going to, last project of the year, I think will be a little bit more interactive, so we're going to just get into
We have
it.
models too.
We have
so
models, so we can all kind of jump in and give our thoughts.
I think this is actually very helpful to have another model to look at, because my problem with this design, as it currently is proposed, is the two little peak roofs in the back that you probably won't ever see them from the street, because you're not going to be standing directly in front of the house like an elevation view, like you were saying. But it's something that kind of is funky about.
Well, I think it's just a general comment on that whole thing. I think it's, that comment has come in front of us many times, that it's not visible from the street, and you're pretty much obviously when the very minimal amount of work is being done and it's not visible, it's really not a big deal. But it's such a substantial element that is being attached to the building, then it just becomes more of our responsibility as a design review board member to review the design and review all the aspects of it. One being it's visible from the street, one being visible from the neighbors, and the other is just looking at it overall and what the project is about. So
Well, that's why I think that it
Yeah,
should
yeah,
not
I
be
think-
that
yeah,
way,
yeah.
because I think if you look at this house like you are in this model form, which is how you'd see it if it was just a little, from the sky, or if you're a bird, that you wouldn't say this is a one thought idea where you would build a house like this. That this is obviously pieces were added on, and this doesn't look like it was a one thought design by one architect. So I would be in favor of taking this roof and changing it. I'm not sure if this is maybe a better solution because it seems more integrated. I guess you asked the question about the heights of the ceilings, and I
Well,
think
the
that's also
reason
a
that I was
problem.
asking, we're going to be interactive, so you can jump in anytime. So we're going to all
I'm waiting.
talk
I'm
about
listening.
it. So-
I'm listening. I'm waiting.
The
for
reason
my
that I
turn.
was asking is because to me, always a design element that is attached to a building, I always look at it as what happens if I remove that piece.
Right.
And if I remove it, is it going to really harm the project, or is it going to help the project, or is it not going to do anything? I mean, it's just going to be something that is...
You won't even miss it.
But to me, the trellis is the first thing is it just kind of jumps right in. And being that it's cutting right in front of the window,
Yeah.
it's definitely tells you that it shouldn't be there.
No.
That's just the first indication based on the rendering. So that's my first indication. And I appreciate the studies that are done, and I think one of the studies that that's the reason that I was going towards the direction of what's the plate height is maybe the same element of the roof forming can begin, like it come down here, and then that kind of carries over, and this becomes more of this kind of a profile versus, it comes over, down, and then it angles over, and this becomes part of this roof, and it goes back to what this is. But that's what I was trying to understand. Is that possible with the plate heights? And I don't know if it's possible or not, but...
Especially since it's a bathroom, you're going to be like,
well, I don't know.
Bedroom, you can put your bed there.
If the roof profile follows, like, you have the pitch, and then you have a different slope, and then it breaks. But let me
right,
draw
but then
it,
I think you would be too shallow.
I'm just saying, okay, like, what happens
Right,
if it does that kind of a form where it literally takes part of this element? And I think that starts somehow bringing some of the elements of the existing and tying it into. But I agree with Mr. Sarkisian that I think this is definitely a critical element there, and how you tie that in. And I think he started to study that, and
that's not the
separating it, I really don't know if it really helps, being that you have all these different roof slopes and roof elements, and you come into this, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if it's really helping it. If this was a different... my dilemma is right now... Right now I'm looking at the existing east elevation. The way that I see the building is the property sloping 7 feet, front to back, and you have the taller element, and then as it goes back and starts stepping down. So the entire massing of the building, the way it's designed originally, it's from, sloping with the contour of the land, and then all of a sudden we're coming in with this and we're popping that out.
I hate to do this, but I don't want to design. I'm refraining myself.
No, I'm
as a
solution.
solution, you take this angle and then you mirror it. You might get something.
It's going. I don't know about that, but
Well, it sort of says, reverse the stepping. So because you're putting the mass in the back, you're going lower to higher. It almost makes it like you want to make it more visible than less visible.
I appreciate the amount of information we have, and thanks
think
for
it's
the
great.
models. It helps a lot. I think we could go further to investigate this. There's one thing, I'm looking over the plans, and there is room for, the problem I have, there's two problems I have beside this, that we know that. The one problem I have is this wall right here. It's the contour, there's no articulation here. It's worse on that model. There is room for articulating by pushing this. If you look on the plan, it's easily, he could have shifted the second floor maybe 5 feet this way. There is room. If you that 2-story wall.
That's the only reason he's doing it. I don't think it's working, in my opinion. I'd rather see this. I think it will do better for the whole massing to tie it together. Is pull, shift this offset 5 feet towards to the center. And then the other problem, the third problem you have is this facade. The model doesn't show the additional 6 feet. You have almost 28 feet high. If you look at elevation, the south elevation,
Right.
it looks like a front apartment building. If you really look at it, that dark side, if you look at it from far away, it's the entrance to the garage, the subterranean parking, and you have the stair going up, and you have 2-story.
By shifting to the 5 feet to the 5 feet towards the center, and then shifting the the balcony, that bedroom that you have at 90, shorten it a little bit to 16 feet in. That will break that massing, that vertical massing. You will eliminate that vertical massing, and you will have an inside balcony. By shifting that and then cancel this trellis doesn't do anything. I think it doesn't make sense breaking, like Alan, you said, cutting through that window. It's not doing anything. By shifting to the side, you will automatically have a shading. I think
I'm not sure if they're going to be able to shift this thing, because
Why?
it's just a... But how are they
See
going to
this?
shift it?
This sits on the edge. If you leave the stair the way it is, shift it this way. See this gap here? So there is room this way. I mean, it's not for me, but there is room for
Right.
investigation. And by doing that, I think it will make it more articulated. I think that you will solve, I think, the problem of, but it doesn't look like an addition anymore. It becomes part of the structure. And then coming back to this problem here, I think we need maybe looking into to simplify the roof system. I'm not that crazy about it. It looks better than that one, but I'm not that crazy about this solution here.
I think
It needs a further
I think
study on this.
the massing of this compared to the amount of addition that is being proposed, it's just not, it doesn't justify, they really don't go hand in hand together. As the Sarkeesian said, the addition is 12 feet wide of a master, or 12 foot something. But unfortunately, stacking it on top and that additional retaining wall height just accentuates that. It just makes it a huge addition, whereas it's a very simple, modest addition as far as the square footage. I think I don't have a problem with the second floor addition. I don't have a problem with the location of the addition. I think it's the proper location. I wouldn't have put it on the driveway side. I would put it on that side. I think overall it's the effort of making it as simple as possible. I think it's commendable. But I think there are certain details that unfortunately it was added on to the building originally that is being carried onto this new addition, is making some of the elements there not really work. I mean, especially the railings and so forth. So I appreciate you coming with this and telling us about the modifying the railings, and I think I would encourage going further, and rather than keeping what's there that it's not consistent, and kind of forcing that style of the columns, the ionic columns, and the trimmings around the window in the front, and the brick in the front, and the wrought iron work in the back, and all of those things really is not benefiting the simple architecture of the building. And taking those elements and then making that as being an existing condition and saying, okay, that's what we have. Let's make the addition to be consistent with that. I think that's where it makes this little small, modest addition be a lot more massive than what it's supposed to be. If I may add some more items in this list, if I may. Again, these are voluntary, and I'll go ahead and add a couple of more consideration. I would ask for the applicant to consider removing the moldings around the window in the front. I would ask the applicant to consider removing I don't have a problem with the entry porch, the roof. I think it works fine. I think the style of the columns that are used to support the trellis and so forth, I think it can be a lot more simpler, less classical versus what the era of the architecture, more Tudor style. So bring that kind of elements there. There's certain details, very unique details. For example, the diamond attic vents. It's a very simple building, so there's very little details that are used in the existing. So I would probably carry that over to the new addition. I would definitely consider removing that oversized trellis that is really not doing anything other than blocking the window, and you can't even open the window, or if it's a casement or slider, but it's really not doing anything. I don't think you would want to stand out and look over the wooden trellis. So I would definitely consider that.
Is that in the front, sir?
No, that's the back, the angled trellis.
Oh, yes.
I would consider not using the lighting and the light fixtures that are being proposed. I know it's there. So all of these little, very small little details that are being attached to this little addition, I think it's making it like, okay, I'm at it. I'm not part of it. So in overall, I don't have a problem with the addition, but I think it's just the way that all these little details and everything has come together is what I'm having some issues with. I don't have a problem with the gazebo wrought iron. I don't have a problem with it. The porte-cochere next door probably was part of the existing addition. Existing structure. If they added later, I don't know if they did legal or illegal. But putting all of this aside, I think the roof needs the main work. I think the way that the roof has been put together. I'm not sure shifting it is going to help or not. I think that's your call to come back and say, okay, the shifting 5 feet here may help or may not help. I don't know. But I think investigating redoing the roof with the existing profile of the building, maybe using that as part of one of the studies. Maybe you have done that already. I don't know. I'm not sure this proposal really works with a flat roof with this building. I'm not sure if it does that, but the idea of hiding this and making it part of the new addition, I think that is commendable. I'm not really 100% for splitting the addition versus the existing. I'm not really for that. It's not really convincing me that that's the right solution. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I think I'm telling you what I see that I have some anxiety about, some of these little details. But
before Board Member Sakai starts, I wanted to just reiterate what Chris Baxter had stated and is stated in the report,
right.
That the the pieces in the front that were done without permits are essentially part of this review. So, so those should be, if there are no comments on those will be considered approved by the board.
Well, I just made comments on that. so
Right. I
think
just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's also considered a legalization of that work.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. So,
So, what was I going to Well, I think, like so I was saying, that the roof line to me, it's causing me anxiety, but I also don't know the solution that would work the best. And I think these study models are probably the best way of looking at the solution. For me, tying it into the hip of the existing roof makes it more integrated. And so I think that you're probably on the right track, or better track, to integrate it versus breaking it apart like you currently show it. I know that the planning commissioner, planning staff, sorry, you're not a commissioner, directed you in another way. This still, to me, I think this feels unbalanced, like it makes the house really heavy on this side. So maybe that's part of the reason why this doesn't work. But to me, this works better than that one, and I know, JP, you have a opposite take on that. And maybe it is making this roof wider to make this seem like this part is balancing on this roof. And if this comes across, somehow that makes it, I don't know, the back end of the ridge. Okay, so you sort of have like a flat part, a pitched part, and then more of a flat part, but that this steps back. So it's coming out, stepping back, and you get a little bit more square footage. I don't know if they have more square footage allowed for the expansion of this project.
I could state real quick, it's a point, well, I can tell.
They're pretty close to the maximum.
Real quick, I can tell you, they have 0.03% more square feet.
Oh, well, yeah.
There's not a lot. I can calculate what that is, but Mr.
Yeah.
Sarkisian understands what I'm referring to. They have just a little bit of extra square footage to put in.
So I don't know. I'm not being very helpful either, but I just the way it's proposed at the peaks, especially because you have the two peaks in the front and putting the two peaks in the back, it's causing me anxiety as well, and it doesn't quite look integrated. It doesn't look like it's part of the original house, which I think an addition should look like it's part of the original house, or at least the same idea of the original house. In terms of the other things that you've talked about, the other issues, I also agree that the pitched trellis cutting across the window feels like it doesn't belong there. It feels like it was just added on, and you stand in that window and you're going to have this diagonal going across. I think because it's is it the south side or is it the north side?
That would be the south side.
It would be the south side. Okay, so I think because it's the south side that you would want to get shading back there, and some perhaps continuing the trellis across, but horizontal and not continuing the angle. Although it is stylistic, I think maybe just a simpler approach would be your better bet, and that gives you the shade that you need. You have the wrought iron. I think I'm more sympathetic to changing the columns in the front because they're already there, and the homeowner doesn't want to spend a lot more money. The style of the house with all the wrought iron, how far do you take it? Do you take all the wrought iron out and the columns out and the moldings out and make it a little simple, or do you?
that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to them, but it's a suggestion.
It's a good suggestion. I think it's the right way of going. But
No one's going to see it. I'm just suggesting if they're going to spend all this money.
to add on.
It's
And I like the trellis in the front. I think it provides you some shade, and it gives you a little character to the house. So I would be in favor of keeping the trellis in the front.
Okay. All right. I'm sure we covered a lot, so I don't know if you want to hear it, but we go down to the list of the record of decision and recommendations by staff, and maybe we can go through those items and see if we want to cross anything out or if we want to add anything to that.
And I have also, sir, I've tried to be pretty faithful to at least get summarize some of your comments
Okay.
too as well, and I can go through it, and then we can cut and paste it all together best we can.
Okay. So the first item that was, the department recommended return for redesign, and with the following conditions. Articulate the east and south sides of house to break the long roof and wall forms. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Reconsider the height and configuration of proposed two-story trellis element at the rear of elevation. I think,
You all say take it out.
yeah, I think we're all on the same page on that, just to literally remove that angle piece.
We could be more specific and say remove the
Remove
proposed two-story
I
trellis
don't know
element.
if reducing the height is going to really solve the problem. I think that's what we're kind of leaning towards.
So we could just say, instead of reconsider height, just say remove the proposed two-story trellis
I
element?
think so.
I think we were suggesting that perhaps a trellis could be designed over that patio
Which
to
is
provide
fine, but
some
I
shade.
think I think we're all looking at that angled.
Okay, and I think that's how we crafted the condition, but,
Okay.
because if you say remove the trellis, that gives less flexibility.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I do have it clarified in that it's the proposed two-story. So because I agree with
Angled,
Ms.
two-story angle.
Stephanie's absolutely correct. So I was going to remove the proposed two-story angled trellis element.
Yes. Okay.
And that's the two-story one, not necessarily
The
one
angled
story.
one.
Yes, sir, the
You
angled.
shouldn't say two-story. You should say angled
The
trellis.
angled trellis portion.
Got it.
Portion of
Okay.
The sloped
proposed
trellis.
Angled
Sloped trellis,
trellis.
the portion.
Got it. I will do that.
Design the roof forms to be more in keeping with existing roof forms. So I guess
It gets back to what you had, sir, about that, Mr. Milliken, your east and your west elevations have continuing your theme of the breaking and bringing it to the south side.
yeah.
Cover the mouth. Go ahead.
Well, well, we have a problem then. So I think we need to look into figuring out a way of. I understand there's a mass, but I think there's a way of detailing and designing the mass that it works a little bit more consistent. Because right now it's there and it's big and it's sitting there, and elements of the truss that trellis that it's been placed there, it's not really helping the mass, hiding the mass itself. But I think by working that out, I think it's definitely going to help the situation. So
So keep that number 3?
yeah,
All right, sir.
consider removing the entry roof pad area or continue roof elements back into the existing roof. I personally, I don't have a problem. I don't know if you guys have a problem with.
See where, if you continue it back, it looks more
Yeah,
integrated.
I think Mr.
He agreed-
Sarkisian
he agreed
proposed
too.
that, so I think that's.
The one thing we need to, I don't have a problem either, but just make sure that the language, the type of construction that we're proposing, to work the same language, because I don't see the front and the back has the same language architecture-wise, the trellis and the backside.
Right. So I think that needs to be reworked anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Exhibit A of the handout that is given. So I would put that as a condition.
Would you like to have it a condition just to have it continue it on back, or give them the option?
No, I think what they're proposing is extend
Got
the
it.
entry roof back. I think
All right.
I like that. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to put continue the roof element back into the
Right.
existing roof. See Exhibit A.
If they're going to continue this, you're going to end up with a valley there,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Oh, no. No. Yeah, it's already there, so.
So it's a mess.
Consider simplifying and unifying the design elements to modify the proposed eclectic style.
I listed a lot of your things, Alan, if you want me to read them
No,
all.
you can just hang that on. I don't need to read
All right, sir.
it. But I think I agree with that with some of the stuff that we talked about, I think.
All right, sir.
So what we'll do is, maintain that condition and say, such as simplify the rails, and will be specific. We do like to read them into the
Oh, okay, then
record,
go ahead and read them.
so that it's
Okay.
clear when we do the record of decision, we don't have a lot of confusion.
I thought we had a lot on the agenda, so I just wanted to get out of here.
Yes.
I guess we don't. so.
Well, what we have, what I wrote down here was consider removing the moldings around the two front entry windows. Consider, I'm prefacing everything with consider. Consider simplifying the entry, the front trellis columns.
And the porch, and the covered porch columns. So there are all the columns in the front.
Oh, yes.
Are we requesting to remove those forms, the molding?
We have a consideration.
I'm putting it as a consideration. We'll see if they come back with it. If they do, then we.
They should remove it. There's only two
Then we
windows.
can talk about it. So.
Yeah, I can change consider to just remove, so you let me know how you want to do it. So I have considered
I would remove it. I don't know about how they. I would remove it because you don't have any.
Anywhere else?
There's only two places, and
It's only two that I saw, sir.
take it out.
It's how you want to do it. Okay, we'll get to that. Let's just go through the list real quick. So then the columns, I have continue the use of the decorative gable vents of the existing designs, those little
Triangle.
triangular gable vent designs. We've already discussed removing the trellis element at the angled trellis element portion at the rear. Consider simplifying the lighting fixtures. Consider now this is, well, actually Mr. Malikian mentioned, Mr. Vladi mentioned it too. Consider shifting second floor west approximately 5 feet. That was Mr. Vladi. Continue the roof design at the west elevation to the second floor south elevation. We pretty much discussed that, and unify the roof forms. Those are the elements that we had talked about.
And then the other way too, we were recommending consideration.
Yes.
I'm considering to break this height. Yeah,
The south elevation height?
yeah.
Okay. So consider articulating, well, that goes right along, if I may, sir, with that condition.
Number one. No.
Would that be condition number one? Yes, the south.
Yes.
So that's part of that same thing. So I can add some of those detail. Actually, I don't know if I need to add those details unless we want to do that, Stephanie, for the record. Do we want to list those?
Yeah, I think we want to be clear because I think we want to be clear as to what the sense of the board is, as what is a condition, what is a consideration. We also have a little bit of an outstanding question about the railings, because there are some existing pot-bellied railings, and now there are a lot of new railings proposed that are pot-bellied railings that we heard you say you'd like to have simplified. So will that be a consideration or a condition? Would you like the existing railings to remain the same? That's okay, because there aren't that many of them, and that the new railings would simply be a more simple wrought iron railing. So I think because there are a lot of pieces to this design that add or detract to the look of the house, depending upon the way you want to go.
You know, if I may, Mr. Chair, members of the board, on page 1 of the staff report, real quick here to help a little bit, in that description of the existing property portion, the title, existing portion, and if you'll notice, I have the third from the bottom sentence of that paragraph, I start with additions found to have. Then I list some of these elements. I think we've discussed them all, but we have the roof extension, or the entry extension its roof, the entry patio trellis and columns. The windows, I think that's one thing that we really don't know what that came in. The foam molding trims, and the rear bedroom sliding glass door and balcony, that kind of showed up sometime. The decorative railings, lamps, and the pool cover. patio. Those really are the little detail things, and I think we've listed most of those as considerations right now, but we can go
Other
with...
than, Chris, sorry to cut you off. Other
Yes, I'm
than the roof and the window and the columns,
Yes.
assuming that the columns are structural and the roof need a permit, other than that, do they really need to get a permit for those? I mean, for decorative railing, lamps, patio, pool cover, foam around the windows, even though we're talking about it, they really don't need a permit for that, correct?
For the foam, I think you do.
You know, I don't know.
Well, all of it together, you would need a design review exemption, because at some point...
Replacing a railing?
Well, at some point, a remodel of the front was done, and there are no permits for it. There are no permits for the window. So this is something that, unfortunately, we discovered as Chris researched the project once it was submitted. So unfortunately, we feel
because,
badly for the applicant. This has taken more time because we discovered that there were these pieces that then added up to a DRB review because it essentially changed the nature of the front of the house. Now, that does cause confusion
talking about
to the...
like lamps in the back rear, the two lamps that was replaced, or the pool patio cover attached to the garage.
No, we're not talking about those pieces. We're really focusing right now in our discussion the elements that essentially change the character of the house as viewed from the front. And so, and it's actually important for anyone who is spending their Thursday night watching at home to know that there are a lot of things that you can do to your home without a permit, but all those things together that change the nature and character of the house really do need to be looked at by staff to see, is this an essential change to the nature, the character of the house from the front, and does it get an exemption or not? And
But as just a common, resident and city of Glendale, someone who's decided to replace the railing, they would never think that they need to come and get a permit. Or
And
at
that's-
one point they want to replace the lamps, that they would never think. I mean,
that's right, and they don't have to come to get a permit to repaint their house or
right.
or that kind of thing. There are, when an applicant wants to change out the windows, that's something that they have to apply for a permit. Or if they're doing a remodel to the facade of their house in a way that upgrades the look of the house, even if they think it looks better, they need to come and talk to staff about that. And that's why we're having such a conundrum about the project. And I think you saw it in the staff report that, we had met with the architect here and thought that, yes, the addition is modest in the back. You won't see it from the street, and we were supportive of the massing. But when we looked at the whole thing together, it seemed to be a little bit confused as far as the details didn't match with the overall massing of the house.
Well, okay. So are we done? Because I think all of these are pretty much consideration unless we feel that it's very important. Because I think, personally, I think the front is, to me, I think that's what's critical. The rest of the stuff, the lamps, the decorative railing, I think as responsibility of a board member, telling the homeowner that you're going through the expense of the remodel, I think bringing it more consistent with what the character of the building is, I think that would be commendable. So,
Yep.
anyways,
Very good. Well, on the recommendations, which are considerations and conditions, we've gone through each of those. That on the page 5, it's that top one, the simplifying and unifying. I have those as considerations. Do we want to do the remove of the trims or not? One was considered, one was straight up remove. Mr. Bellotti wants to remove Mr.
Well, I think the direction that we're going, I think we're...
Considerations?
I think we want to return for redesign, so I think that once we get the...
Okay.
Let's see what happens then. So.
Then I'll put it as a consideration and see what he does when he comes
Right,
back.
and then we
All
can
right.
go ahead and have a final decision
So
then.
we basically have,
Because right now, I'm just going to wait to see what they're going to come up with.
very good. All right, sir. And we're not going to list these individually out, are we, on the records? Okay, very good, very good. All right,
I move for return for redesign with the conditions and considerations as stated by planning staff.
very good.
I second.
And we have a second by Mr. Bellotti. Okay, and roll call. My, excuse me, sorry. Mr. Bellotti
Yes.
and Ms. Sakai
Yes.
and Mr. Malikian.
Yes.
It'll be 3-0, return for resign with the staff comments and conditions.
Okay.
I don't have the minutes.
Yes, we do. We have actually one set of minutes from November the 19th. I do have extra copies if you would like
Can I
to
have
take a
one?
look. Of course.
They
Here's
punish
an
me
extra copy.
later. What is it? This, nice.
And all board members were present that day.
No, you know something, let me go ahead and I'll keep those, I'll talk to you about that now. Thank you very much.
I think we're okay.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented for November 19th?
I move to approve the minutes, November 19th.
Motion by Board Member Sakai, second by
Yes.
Board Member Beladian. Thank you. Board Member Sakai?
Yes.
Board Member Beladian?
Yes.
Chairperson Malikian?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. With that, last item. Stephanie and myself.
We just want to thank you very much for your service this year. This is the last DRB meeting of the year. You've all performed a great service to the city, and we're looking forward to seeing you back in the middle of January is your first meeting.
2010.
So have a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
To all of you. So, thank you very much. And a motion to adjourn at 6:25? Thank you.
Thank you.